Okay, Councillor Walker, are you out there?
I'm absolutely out here. Can you hear me okay?
Go ahead. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, so look, I have a number of questions. I'd like to confine my questions at this point to issues that have been raised in the discussion to date. And first of all, I just want to address the items that have been referred to that go to budget, and they really just go to some clarification on my part. First off, can it be established that Tautaki Auckland Unlimited depends entirely on Auckland Council for its capital budget and also for a significant amount of its operational budget because it runs at a operational loss, but especially the capital budget because that's what's being applied here? So a fairly simple question.
Is the question, Councillor, sorry, could you repeat the question? I'm not sure it's totally simple.
Where does, well, let me express it another way. Where does Auckland Unlimited get all of its capital budget from? It doesn't generate it itself. It all comes from Auckland Council. That is the case, is it not?
Well, it manages a set of assets which are in trust, and some of which generate revenue, and then the budget is confirmed by the council, the additional budget. I'm going to let Nick Hill answer that question.
Correct. I mean, I'm referring at this point to the capital budget.
Yeah, the capital budget is fully funded by the council.
Okay, that's fine. The other question I've got just goes to the incorrect information that Mr. Hardy put initially around the operation at Western Springs. As far as the track is concerned, my understanding is that the track and matters that go to Speedway are funded by the Speedway operation currently, and that has always been the case, is it not? So, fairly simple question. Speedway funds its activities at Western Springs. Is that the case?
Yes, it does, but there are areas where costs can be split, like pulling up and pulling down the safety fences. So there will be costs that we may wear.
But in the main, the costs at Western Springs for Speedway are borne by Speedway.
The event
okay, look, that's fine. I'll move on. I'll move on to the next question. Are you at liberty to tell us what revenue Tautaki gets per meeting from Speedway?
Through the chair, the specific revenue I'd regard as commercially sensitive, but to provide context to help answer your question, the revenue that Tautaki earns from a season of Speedway equates to half of a large concert at Western Springs.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what the reason for commercial sensitivity is. Is there some form of competition with Speedway at Western Springs? What's the reason for commercial sensitivity? Do Speedway have a problem with disclosing it? That's a question that stands on the table.
I've just got the nod from the promoters, so that the answer to your question is $12,500, including GST per event.
Okay. The other comparative question I've got, quite obviously it's not a Tautaki matter, but it's an Auckland Council matter. What revenue is received at Waikaraka Park per meeting?
Nothing.
Is there any revenue that's received at all? or is it simply a peppercorn lease per year? Can I have that established?
The arrangement at Waikaraka Park is a community lease, is my understanding. With obligations.
What's the amount per year?
Operator to maintain the track.
Okay. What's the amount per year? Is it a couple of dollars, or what is it?
Council, my understanding is it's a peppercorn rental.
Okay, well that's fine. And then my understanding is at what
Context though is in terms of where that line of questioning or the implication is.
well that
context
context will become apparent soon.
Right.
I can establish that context in a moment. And as far as
Order, Chair.
the motorsport related activities at Waikaraka Park are concerned, are they met by Waikaraka Park Stock and Saloon?
The questioner is speaking over the top. Can we make sure that we allow the staff to fully answer the questions, even when the answers are inconvenient?
Okay, that's.
It's a little difficult for me online, I'm sorry.
Walker, just hold the questions until the staff member's finished his answer and then have your next question. That's what we've been asked for. So, did you get...
Okay.
I just wanted to be clear, Councillor, that the overall financial position for the council would be improved as a result of this decision, because the lease arrangement in place for Waikaraka Park would remain at a peppercorn rental, and that would enable a financially viable speedway operation to operate at Waikaraka Park, and the financial position of Tātaki at Western Springs would improve, and the information has been presented by Tātaki to support that today.
And through the chair, I'd just add that whilst
okay.
it's a peppercorn rental at Waikaraka Park, there are costs imposed on the leasee in terms of maintenance of the facility. We don't have those figures here today, but it is not a $0 contribution.
Okay, next question.
So further to my earlier question, then we've established that it's simply a peppercorn arrangement, and that the Stock and Saloon, obviously in a similar arrangement to Western Springs, pay for the track and related costs. So I think we've got that on the table. What follows from that is that given that Tautaki and effectively Auckland Council currently generate revenue from Western Springs Speedway at Western Springs, that under the arrangement at Waikaraka Park, that will no longer be the case, and quite obviously there's a significant cost there. It was mentioned at $12,500 per meet by Mr. Parkinson. I don't have a calculator on me right now, but quite obviously it's not too difficult to work that out. So I'll just leave that point on the table. The other question I've got just goes to this benefit, so-called, and it's been established by Mr. Parkinson, and I've had some information via Alistair Cameron that is essentially made around an assumption of more concerts. So the question that I've got relating to that, has there been any business case, and in particular any marketing information that indicates that there might be extra concerts, and in particular in a circumstance where Eden Park is successful in its fast track legislation for significantly more and larger concerts at Eden Park, and that there are significant concerts at Mount Smart Stadium, the prospect of concerts at North Harbour Stadium and other venues, is there a likelihood that there may well not be the anticipated concerts and therefore revenue at Western Springs. I'd just like some clarification around the accuracy of that, because we have had experiences with Tautaki where they've failed badly around projections, especially at North Harbour Stadium. So is there any business case? Are there any evidence of promoters, or is it wishful thinking?
In response to your question, the $1.1 million improvement, first of all, acknowledges the loss of Speedway revenue, so that is built into the $1.1 million improvement. The uplift in concert activity reflects the inquiries that we receive that we are currently not able to accommodate because of Speedway. It reflects the level of interest that we have had expressed by the major promoters for placing concerts into Western Springs if Speedway was not there. And it is important to acknowledge that the type of concert that promoters are looking to place into Western Springs is quite different to the types of concerts that are contemplated for either Eden Park, Go Media Stadium or North Harbour Stadium. And the key difference is that the concert events that promoters are looking to place into Western Springs are events that are looking for that park, green, open, general admission event, not the grandstand corporate facilities that are on offer at those other stadia.
Okay, just a further question. Are there venues such as the Auckland Domain that might be cost effective for a promoter and be equal, if not better, than possibly something at Western Springs? I'm thinking of, Coca-Cola in the park and other events.
Councillor.
I can answer that as chair of the Domain Committee. The Domain events at the Domain are limited under and Councillor Fletcher will back me up on this, under the Domain Act, and it's not an event destination.
Okay, all right. The other budget question I've got is around this assumption around 11 million of long-term planned funding. My understanding is that a sum of money is required to be spent at Western Springs regardless because of damage to the area where the pits have been for Speedway, for electrics, and for other things. So is that budget in place? Is it going to be affected by this 11 million provision?
No, it's not. It doesn't in any way affect the remediation works that are underway or have been mostly completed at Western Springs.
Okay. The other question I've got that goes to budget goes to the earlier issues raised around whether the support base will move to Waikaraka Park, because the evidence to date, and certainly the evidence we received around Collindale Park, is that they would not. At Speedway, what is the potential seating capacity for a Speedway meet there?
It is my understanding that Waikaraka Park currently operates to a capacity of approximately 6,000 people.
What's the capacity at Western Springs?
The seated capacity at Western Springs is approximately 12,500.
What's the capacity for a concert? What's the capacity for a concert?
Capacity for a concert at Western Springs is 49,500.
So
30,
that 12,000 that 12,000 seated for Speedway seems to be on the light side. Are you sure that's correct? Yeah. I know that Speedway at times have had as many as 28,000 patrons
so,
at meets.
sorry, in response to that, the 49,500 for a concert has 35,000 placed on the field and Speedway track. You then have additional capacity for a concert because people are standing, whereas for Speedway people are seated. So that is the explanation for the significant difference in capacity. The largest Speedway crowd that I am aware of at Western Springs in the last 8 years is 12,500 people. And that was for the event under the former promoter when it was promoted as being the last ever Speedway event at Western Springs.
And is it correct that under the earlier promoters, prior to RFA taking over Speedway, that there was significantly more patronage, as much as 28,000?
I'm not privy to attendances prior to our involvement, but I will make a general observation that attendance at many sports events has decreased over time.
Okay. The other issue that I just want to address as it goes to cost and budget is one of the costs that have been put up is that the cost of achieving more meets through the unitary plan is prohibitively expensive. Is it not the case that if that process occurs through the review of the unitary plan, that it's relatively economical, particularly given that Speedway is 100% compliant in respect of noise and light, that are the major issues, and also in terms of traffic management, they're compliant. So can you just confirm that the costs are much more modest and quite practicable under a circumstance where the changes are made through a unitary plan review?
Through the chair, it would depend whether that aspect of any review of the unitary plan ended up being appealed to the Environment Court, so I can't really comment on it. If it was just part of a review of the unitary plan, then it would be relatively inexpensive. I would note that probably the soonest that the review of the unitary plan will be out for public consultation is, I think, 2029.
Are we working on it now?
Is the question, Councillor, are we working on the full review of
Well,
the entire
I'm just trying to get a sense of the practicable option of having more flexibility around Speedway meets and more Speedway meets, which goes to the economics of Speedway at Western Springs and its contribution. So I think I've had the answer that it's a modest cost that's sufficient at this time.
Well, it's relatively
other question
less expensive than carrying out a current
correct.
plan change. It's certainly not inexpensive. That process of reviewing the unitary plan is a very time-intensive and resource-intensive process, as you know.
Sure. My major interest was just to establish that it's significantly less than the amount mentioned in the agenda item. The other question that I've just got that goes to budget, and I know that it has apparently not been considered adequately under option 1, but is it the case that improvements at Western Springs to cater for Speedway would be fairly modest? And perhaps if I had an appreciation of what that cost was, that would be helpful. has it been adequately considered in option 1? Do we have some costs?
Do we have costs for what, sorry, councillor?
Well, one of the options that's in the location analysis and one of the options that we're required to consider under our requirements under the Local Government Act is quite obviously the current situation, which is Speedway staying at Western Springs. So I'm interested in knowing what the cost would be for any improvements needed for Speedway at Western Springs. Are they modest? I mean, we're talking about 11 million at Waikaraka Park. What's the comparative cost at Western Springs?
Councillor, I think I understand the question. I might ask Tataki to address it in a second. One thing I would say is we don't currently have a proposal from an operator wishing to operate Western Springs Speedway from the next season. So there isn't a proposal that we're aware of to undertake any particular works in order to operate Western Springs.
But
So
I understand that, but further to that,
the location analysis.
So
just further to that,
Sorry, councillor, can we just...
is it conceivable that there could be a proposal?
Your question about the location analysis and the work that was done to ascertain what would be required to operate Speedway at Western Springs, as it currently is, I assume.
Yes.
So the 11 million for Waikaraka Park is to enable consolidation of the classes. There has been no work done to look at the cost of consolidation of the classes at Western Springs, because with a limit of only 12 events per year at Western Springs, there is no opportunity for consolidation at Western Springs.
Sorry, I'll just add...
Just for clarification.
The cost of operating Western Springs at... operating Speedway at Western Springs is addressed. We've traversed that several times in terms of the ongoing cost to Tātaki is estimated at $1.1 million per year to carry on as we are.
That's an operational cost. My question is around any additional capital required from council over and above any remediation work to do with flooding that includes, remediating the pit area that has to be done anyway, the electrics, the other things, the buildings. They're all going to be done. What costs over and above that are there around retaining Speedway at Western Springs? And this is not a consolidation question as it goes to bringing stock and saloon there. It's purely around option 1, and option 1 was around retaining Speedway at Western Springs. So I'm assuming that we have some information to inform ourselves around that.
Is that there is no proposal to upgrade any of the facilities at Western Springs in order to enable Speedway to carry on there.
I understand that. My question is around the consideration of that as a practicable option, because that is a requirement under the Local Government Act. It's identified in option 1. I'm just asking if there is any supporting information to indicate what the capital costs might be.
Okay.
I'm assuming they would be quite modest.
I think I've answered the question. The reason that the practical option that is referred to in the report is that Western Springs Speedway may carry on at Western Springs. That has a cost, an ongoing operating cost of $1.1 million per year estimated to Tātaki, and also has the downside of not upgrading Waikaraka Park. We have not assessed as a reasonably practical option any upgrades to the facilities at Western Springs, so we do not have the costs of that option because it's not one of the options we considered.
Okay, councillor.
Okay.
Walker, we've had 12 questions from you, and I've got a couple of other people who want to having a crack at it. So I'm going to move to councillor.
Sure, I will reserve my
questions.
I'll reserve my right to ask some more questions later. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, staff. I'll be hopefully much briefer. Is it true that whilst the number of people wish to keep Speedway at Western Springs, we can't do this without two things, a lease and a licensed operator. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we've heard from the chair of Tātaki that they are not extending their lease past March next year. If we were to make this funding decision and move to Waikaraka Park, do we have a lease operator for Speedway to operate out of Waikaraka Park?
Yes.
If you were a Speedway fan, and I'd like to think I am actually, and wanted more meets, I think that's the term, is it true that you can only do 12 at Western Springs, thanks to the Environment Court, but you could do 35 if Speedway moved to Waikaraka Park?
Yes.
Is it true that if you have no lease extension at Western Springs and you do not agree to the funding upgrade at Waikaraka Park, that Speedway have nowhere to go after March 2025?
Yes. In this, so our advice is that there is no certainty for Speedway to continue at Western Springs because their licence expires at the end of 2024-25 season. And so a possibility is that there will be no home for open wheel racing in Auckland if that's the decision.
Thank you, Your Worship. That gives me the information I need. Thank you.
Is Tātaki a council-controlled organisation?
Yes. Sorry, I assumed that the Mayor had...
No, there was an interruption, but I think you can answer it anyhow. Okay, Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Your Worship. The meeting was adjourned because there was a bit of uncertainty over information that we had over the consultation, and that's forced me to go back and look at some material. So my first question is really around the Mangakiki Local Board have done some excellent work and have achieved their master plan there, but what's the overall cost of that master plan? Who did it and who peer reviewed it?
The master plan was undertaken on behalf of a local board. I don't have the answer to that specific question. I'm sure we'll be able to ascertain it before the end of this meeting, given how we're going.
I think the point about it, and it sort of follows on from Councillor Newman, because like Councillor Newman, I feel quite split on this, is how we define critical. And while on the face of things, there appears, if you're just looking at moving things around, perhaps in a logical way, that this could be quite an elegant solution. But I want to understand exactly what we're in for long term and what is critical and what is part of the unfunded master plan that we're not being presented with today, but which will inevitably come back to us. The comment that I really want to make is I really resent being put in this situation, because if we go back to 2018, 2019, it was really acrimonious. And the last time we were asked to make a judgment call and accept advice that something wouldn't be subject to judicial review was the targeted accommodation rate, and we all know where that ended up. And so I don't want to express a vote today, and I know the Mayor has been very clear that he wants a decision today. I want to be able to express a vote with absolute confidence. I've got a bit confused in the answers that we've heard around what are opportunity costs, what are those costs of conversion, after each event for the stadium to be put back together. And, I'm thinking, well, what are the opportunities costs for the town hall? We could have far better revenue coming from the town hall than us sitting around having committee meetings. So I guess I would really like to have a little bit more hard and fast information on what are we weighing up in terms of costs here. So if you want to speak further to that, I'd really welcome it. But I'd like some evidence being put before me that I could weigh up, well, here's the hard cost here and here's the hard expenditure there. So I would like you to speak to that. Secondly, I'd like, I heard what you said, that here we have a club that's been going since 1929, but we didn't put any weighting on the historical use of it with our consultation. Whether that is something we should have considered. We didn't consider it, but should we have considered it? And the other thing that I really want you to be clear on, and I really want to write down your answer, have you or any of the CCO staff ever conveyed to Ponsonby Rugby Club that their lease would not be renewed?
Thank you, Councillor. I think we might do a bit of a team effort to answer your questions. The costs and benefits. So the costs associated with upgrading Waikaraka Park in order to enable consolidation and all classes to race there are estimated at $11 million. That's the capital cost. And that's, and we have, and as Tātaki explained, we have taken that, or Tātaki have taken that process all the way through to design phase, so they can have a higher degree of confidence about that estimate than we would normally have at this stage. And so that's the cost associated with upgrading the works. We have not estimated the whole cost of implementing the entire Waikaraka Park master plan. I understand that was the question you were asking earlier. I misunderstood it. I thought you were asking about the cost associated with making the master plan. So the additional works have not been estimated, and like with all of our facilities, we'd anticipate over time further upgrades and works to come onto the agenda and to be considered on their own merits at that time, and that's the case with all our facilities, including Western Springs. So what we can say is that we have a process has been undertaken to give us confidence that that is the work that's required to enable the races, the classes to race. And okay, that's the cost of that of those capital works. On the other side, Tātaki have presented us with information that says the cost of retaining Speedway at Western Springs, so carrying on with the status quo, is estimated by them to be $1.1 million per year on a normal year. So that's the additional subsidy that's required of Western Springs that results from the fact that it's being used for Speedway, and that does not factor in any sort of additional plan for Western Springs. That's just kind of carrying on the status quo. That's the additional cost. So that is the sort of opportunity cost associated with having Speedway at Western Springs. And Tātaki have been able to, as the Mayor pointed out, capitalise, I suppose, that benefit in order to make available $11 million of capital to transfer to the local board. So that is, I think, the best I can do in terms of bringing clarity to where the costs and opportunity costs lie and how the numbers have arisen. In terms of, and I will ask Tātaki to clarify or add to that if necessary. In terms of the question relating to Ponsonby Rugby, council staff have never conveyed to Ponsonby Rugby that I am distinguishing council from CCOs here, and I will ask Tātaki to address Tātaki's position. Council staff have never conveyed as a position to Ponsonby Rugby that their lease will not be renewed. The position we take is that decisions and we refer to that in the memo, that council will ensure that there is proper and fulsome engagement with Ponsonby Rugby, and that those matters are brought to the governing body as part of decisions about Western Springs in an appropriate way.
So you're saying that no council staff have ever conveyed that, but I want the same assurance from Tāko. I have the highest regard for Sir Brian, and he seems to have an alternative view to the one that you've just expressed.
So I'll get James to respond to the reference at the start from Councillor Watson about a statement on television. But I can say the board has never made that decision. I've never made that decision. There is no decision to not extend a lease at Ponsonby Rugby. What we are doing is working through what options there are for Western Springs Stadium and what options there are for Ponsonby Rugby. That is unresolved. The issues on the future of Western Springs Stadium are part of an expression of interest process. That process, if any changes are made to Western Springs in its current use, we bring that back to the governing body.
I really appreciate your clarification around the fact that the board have never made a decision on it, but I asked you the question on the basis of information that was given us earlier in the meeting, is that Ponsonby Rugby Club had never been advised that they would be required to move. So so obviously there might be a division between staff and board, but that's absolutely fine.
So if we just finish clarifying that question. So I'm saying as the Chief Executive, there's no difference between the board and the executive position. There was a reference to a comment that James made, I think, on television, and I'll get James to respond to that.
So as Nick has already referenced, we've been working with Ponsonby Rugby Club looking at options that involve both being relocated onto the outer field at Western Springs, as well as options elsewhere, including Cox's Bay. That is work that we've been doing with the club in the context of the fact that their current lease expires in 2027, and there are pros and cons for both Ponsonby Rugby and ourselves with their presence at Western Springs. So it was agreed that we would look at the different options. So my comment that has been referenced about not having interest in Ponsonby Rugby having an extended lease in the main stadium was referencing the fact that we were contemplating options still at Western Springs, but it was with a focus on the outer field for the club rooms, not the main stadium.
So,
Hang on, but we're wandering off course here. This is about Speedway, and your question, it may well be, and I'm well aware of what the background here, I don't think anyone's told them that their lease is cancelled, but they haven't been told that they've been renewed either. So they're left up in the air, and it's a bit unclear. And I think that it won't be made clear until we decide what we're doing with the item at the moment, which is about Speedway.
My final question was going to be to Nick, and that was around, it was, I think, quite an inspired move, given how divisive it had been in previous councils, to actually have the reference group that was to bring together a whole stadia strategy. Would it have assisted the process at this time if we had all of the information on that? for moving forward. Because, you know, it seems like we're dealing with strands of things rather than a comprehensive picture.
Are you referring to the stadium working group?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
And also the comprehensive picture of Western Springs.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. I do have a comment on it. I suppose it's always available to you to consider whether you want a more complete picture before you make a decision, and it's also sometimes available to you to make a decision without that complete picture, because sometimes it's not possible to have the full all of the pieces before a decision is needed to be made, and you know, a reflection I would have is that waiting for all the pieces to fit together might mean we never make a decision about some of these matters, and at some point some decisions do need to be made. I think that's the reflection that staff would have on the process to date.
I think the answer was that nothing's ever perfect, but we still have to make decisions. Councillor Ferry, please.
Thank you. I'm particularly interested in the lack. I'm particularly interested in the lack of options for Speedway at Western Springs after the coming season, and the fact that the promoter there now is not interested in picking it up. Do we have any indication of, are there other, this is not a sport I know a lot about, seems to me this is the main promoter through the country. Are there other promoters out there that could potentially, sorry, I'm asking staff.
So the last time we went out with an RFP to operate at Western Springs, we had two parties come to the table.
When was that? Sorry?
That was in 2018. It is not a large market, and the track record of the last two promoters operating at Western Springs is that they have both been losing money in operating Speedway at Western Springs.
Okay.
Sorry. And more recently, the expression of interest process that we ran this year did not result in any parties putting forward a proposal for Speedway at Western Springs.
Right. So that was kind of where I was wanting to go, was to understand at the moment, do we have any other proposals on the table that meet conditions? No. So I also did just have a question about the 12 events maximum at Western Springs. There's been a suggestion that potentially we could get that increased in a unitary plan review, in which we're not scheduled to do for another 5 years. What do you think is the likelihood of us getting 12 increased, and what would we need to do to support Speedway to stay at Western Springs over the next 5 years until we could do that work?
But based on our financial analysis, the opportunity cost to council waiting 5 years would be $5.5 million. The likelihood of achieving change, I guess, is purely speculative. The 12, the limit of 12, and let me be clear that the fact the limit is 12 is only part of the constraint. The further constraints is how specific they are as to each month, how many you can have in each month. Furthermore, the fact you can only nominate 8 rain dates, and they have to be nominated at the start of the season. So there's no flexibility, which most other tracks enjoy. So at the time of the unitary plan, the Environment Court order conditions were uplifted and adopted through the unitary plan. there was no party that sought to vary the conditions through that unitary plan process.
So just further to that, can I just understand, I think I know the answer to this, but I want to check, what is the reason for that heavy constraint on the number of events, only being able to give 8 rain dates, that kind of stuff? What is the underlying reason for those restrictions?
The historical context was, as I understand it, the Environment Court determined that there had been a 10-year history of the previous conditions not being complied with.
Right.
And so that was the determination they made at that point in time in 2005.
So the Environment Court decision, though, so what is the problem that they were solving there around
So that
these
they
constraints?
were looking to address the noise, it was essentially noise impact on the local neighbourhood.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone's had a go at the questions.
I haven't finished my questions.
Discussions, and are you absolutely sure it's not a discussion? Because you can have a discussion in a few minutes if you want.
No, I gave notice earlier, together with some other councillors, that I had additional questions.
Rightio. I think Mr. Watson wants to have additional questions, but during the discussion time, you can also, there will be questions raised, I presume, but these questions must be of the people related to this. So
Having said that, at discussion time, the officers will have left the table. The appropriate time for questions is now.
I suppose as long as they're questions, but a lot of them have been ramblings. And so can you ask a question this time? Okay, question Mr. Lee, and then question Mr. Walker,
Okay.
and then question Mr. Watson.
Can we know whether the Ponsonby Rugby Club have requested of Tātaki Auckland Unlimited to give the club surety about the renewal of their 30-year lease, 30-year tenure at Western Springs Stadium? Have they requested that of Tātaki
Have asked to
Auckland
extend-
Unlimited? Yes or no?
Have asked to extend the lease. They have asked to extend the lease.
And have you given them security?
No.
Okay, thank you. Second question, I just want to go through, if I could, the financial transaction that we're recommended to approve today, namely the transfer of 11 million to the Maunga Kia Tamaki local board. So the 11 million is to go to the budget of the local board if we agree to the recommendation. But 8 million will be remitted by the council from Tātaki, but 8 million will be remitted by Auckland Council back to Tātaki. Is that how it works? So in effect, Tātaki contribute 3 million. Is that the mechanics of it?
No.
I'm referring to financial implications 70 and 71. I think all of us support the local board having extra money to get things done at Waikaraka Park. So that's how it works.
No, it's not. Sorry, councillor. I think I understand the question. And I think what's referred to in 71 is that the Tātaki board would seek reimbursement of $8 million. That is not the decision that you've been asked to make today. Tātaki board have, subject to your approval, agreed to transfer the $11 million from their budget to the local board.
Okay, so that's what we're voting on, right? But in effect, that's a bit of a charade, is it not? Because all the work at Waikaraka Park will be overseen, managed by Tātaki executive. So in effect, the money will go to the local board, and then when the contracts are fulfilled, Tātaki will ask the local board for the money back. Is that how it works?
No.
Well, this is what it seems to say on project governance and oversight of over delivery.
So
seems like it's-
councillor, trying to bring some clarity to this. The reason why the money needs to be transferred to the local board is because it's a local board asset, and therefore capital spending is for the local board to decide and to make. So it needs to be part of its budget. The local board doesn't want to take responsibility for the actual projects. They want to oversee and make the key decisions, but they have asked Tātaki to run the process of enabling the upgrade. Once the upgrade's finished, the local board will be in receipt of an upgraded asset that will be the local board's asset. And there is no scenario that we have contemplated where Tātaki would then go back and ask the local board to refund any of the cost. The Tātaki board have indicated as part of LTP conversations they may seek some contribution. That is not the decision before you today, and if you only made this decision, then the contribution from Tātaki would be $11 million.
So the resolution is to transfer 11 million from Tātaki to the Maunga-Kia local board, but actually, in effect, it's a virtual transfer, isn't it, really? Because Tātaki Auckland will control that money from the beginning to the end. So it may feel good for the local board, but they're not actually getting a cent, really. The money stays, in effect, under the control of Tātaki to fulfil its plan. And we don't know the full scope of that. We don't know the full scope of that plan.
I think in terms of an accounting sense, that's likely correct. In terms of the characterisation, the local board ends up with an asset that is worth at least an extra $11 million, and the plan to upgrade Waikaraka Park is the local board's plan. It's not Tātaki's plan.
They don't get the money really, though.
Well, they get the asset, which is what they've asked for, councillor.
The money has been used to fund the project, is the short
Okay,
story.
councillor Walker, your next plan.
Sure.
Councillor Walker, please, your next question.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
I'm waiting for your question, please.
Yes, sure. Is it correct that there have been expressions of interest from other parties? My understanding is that Onolna Ford from Extreme Drivers League has expressed interest in aligning herself with Speedway and enhancing the revenue generation at Western Springs Stadium. I just want to have some clarity around that. Is that the case?
I think the email you referred to has been sent to all councillors and it's attached to our memorandum.
And has there been any consideration given to that in terms of how it changes the picture?
I think that would be a matter for governing body members to consider whether they wish to consider that, and they can read that for themselves and take a view on how serious a proposition it is.
I mean, the reason I'm asking this is that this process has been conducted at light speed with only 2 days that we had the agenda before we were able to consider it. Submitters have not had time. People are coming forward now with very realistic propositions at Western Springs that conceivably change the whole game there and make it much more attractive financially. That is a practicable option and should be considered. And we should have the opportunity to consider this information. So I'm just establishing by my question that there are practicable options that do not appear to be being considered by Auckland Council or Tautaki. The other question I've got that goes to the so-called opportunity cost and benefit if it is the case that it's $11 million that is being capitalised in advance of a speculative, I would suggest, return, which is highly unusual for council. I doubt if I really question it, frankly, and I've got a question as to whether we do that with anything of substance. But is it not the case that the capital that we would raise would highly likely be incurring debt with an interest rate of perhaps 5% or the like? And what might the cost of that be over this 10 years?
It'd be the same with the cost of the losses that they're making, mate. I mean, it's pretty obvious to me. Can we not just have questions?
No,
please?
No, it is not. The 1.1 million is not a loss that is being made by Speedway. It is a speculative estimate of some opportunity cost. So my question is, what is this $11 million debt raised and effective transfer costing us? Because that hasn't been put on the table.
So
that's not a cost to Tautaki, it's a cost to Auckland Council. Can I have somebody in finance answer this?
I think through the chair, the short story here is that it's $11 million of capital budget that's already budgeted for in the LTP and already built into our budgets, and will be at the same cost as all the other borrowings for all the other capital projects that council is undertaking.
So
what?
Let's be clear about the advice given here, councillor. That the advice is that the transfer can be made from existing budgets without any additional impact on priority projects by Tātaki on rates or on debt.
So where has the $11 million come from in terms of any project that it was allocated for in the long-term plan?
It's coming from the capital budget that Tātaki has allocated to it, and they have made. I'll ask Nick to explain exactly where it's coming from, but as outlined in the report.
It's come from a number of aspects in the capital budget. Number one is we will not spend the full capital budget in this financial year. So there's an element of having to deal with that capital surplus. Secondly, there have been changes to the master planning for the zoo, independent of this exercise, which changed their capital investment profile. And I think, James, in terms of Mount Smart Stadium, again, there are capital savings in terms of the plan as it's been developed in the last year.
So essentially what you're saying is we're going to spend less money on the zoo, we're going to spend less money at Mount Smart. You haven't spent all of your money this year, so effectively we're taking it from other things in large part.
And looking to do them better and achieve the same outcome.
And have we had any written information on this to support our decision?
It's a
decision, or am I just hearing it now?
You've made.
Okay, is that board information available to us?
I think, councillor, no, the information isn't available, and I think we need to be clear about the role that we're playing here, and the way the CCOs operate, because we have a situation where we've got a CCO. It's tasked with managing a capital budget and managing an operating budget, which we've allocated as part of the long-term plan, with a range of outcomes and objectives tagged to that, and they manage that day to day on the behalf of the council. And what they're presenting to us is that, and they've made it clear, I think, in terms of the payback periods they're providing, is that if they can make this transfer, they can make it neutral to their budget, therefore to rates and debt, and also neutral in terms of any impact on priority projects. And that's because of the usual management of their budget that they have to undertake. And we do not, as a matter of course, unpick that assessment that the boards in their professional judgment are exercising on behalf of the council.
Through you, Mr. Hardy, my concern is that this is a highly different and irregular process. Normally, sums of this magnitude would go through the annual plan and the long-term plan. And I've established through this question that there are likely to be impacts on the zoo, potentially Mount Smart Stadium, and I don't know what else. And there's been no consultation or engagement around that with us or the public. It's pretty shonky decision-making and highly irregular, as is the so-called capitalisation.
Okay, you've had a
Thank you.
So I'm going to let Mr. Watson, if his questions were at least questions.
Yeah, I've got two very precise questions, and they really go to the public confidence, both of the people that have turned up to the council here today and to the Aucklanders more generally. And the first one goes and follows on from Councillor Newman in respect of adhering to council resolutions that are passed. We passed, as a consequence of almost an exact rerun of what we're going through today and last week, we passed a very clear resolution back in 2018 calling on the council to defer the decision on the relocation of Western Springs Speedway until Finance and Performance Committee and Planning Committee have. So no decision on the relocation of Western Springs until a committee of the whole had addressed three things. The first one was a political discussion about the future of all our stadia, and that was designed to overcome the notion now where we're voting for something where we don't know what's coming up next. Okay, so we're in exactly the same position there. People are getting get rid of from Western Springs without us having any idea what's coming along next. The second part of that resolution had a discussion with Eden Park Trust Board and the government about the future of Eden Park Stadium. That hasn't occurred, and at the very moment, the Eden Park's going fast-track legislation to get a roof and to conceivably have a boutique stadium. How does that affect what's planned for Western Springs? And finally, discuss whether Auckland needs a new stadium. Instead of doing that, we've rushed into an expression of interest process looking to build a new stadium. Not whether you need one, but are we going to have a new one or not? So that's a very clear expectations in terms of a committee of the whole. That's all councillors, not just a couple of people on a stadium working party. A discussion about the future of all the stadiums, so we know how they're going to operate in an integrated network. That's a reasonable expectation. We've had 6 years. That hasn't occurred. So we can have, the paraphernalia about, the working party, and who decides, and this is merely a question to you, Mr. Wilson, who decides whether a council resolution has been fulfilled or not?
The best answer to that, councillor, is to say that it is, this was a resolution from 6 years ago. It is entirely open to this chamber to decide to change that or to give us additional or different direction.
Okay,
if the question is it up to me to stop this coming to you because of a resolution from 6 years ago? No, it's not.
Okay, right. So it's with this. So I hope everyone's clear as to your responsibly one way or the other on fulfilling council resolutions. My final question, and thank you for your patience. Are you familiar with this document, Auckland Stadiums from 2025 and beyond, that covers the future of all our stadiums? I found out about this item coming at this meeting by reading an article in the paper. Are you familiar with this document? Auckland stadiums from 2025 and beyond.
I'm not familiar with the document.
You're familiar with it?
I'm not familiar with the document.
Okay, so this is a document that's been prepared at the start of 2023 by the Mayor's lead liaison, and makes some comments and recommendations or opportunities about Waikaraka Park and all our other venues. And at that stage in 2023, start of 2023, the comment in respect of Speedway was made, Waikaraka Park, home of all Speedway and stock car type events, inclusive of Western Springs and Waikaraka Park. Now, we have known about that for nearly 2 years, yet here we are today making a rushed decision on the future of Speedway. This document is known to the Mayor, known to the Mayoral Office, known to Tātaki. No one in the public knows. None of these councillors around here know. We've had ample time to go through this piece by piece and answer all these questions. That hasn't happened. Why not?
Well, Councillor, you haven't circulated that document to us in advance, and so I'm not really in a position to be able to comment on it. I don't have any recollection of having seen that document, and I have a little bit of background that's relevant to the context you're talking about. I don't believe it's an official document in any shape or form, but as I said, I'm not sure under which circumstances you've received it, what it was purported to being, and who received it. So I don't think we can really take that further unless you want to show us the document.
What I think I can take a bit further, Mr. Hardy, is that we've had a council resolution that has been largely ignored its substance. We've had an Auckland Speedway location analysis that cost nearly 70 grand that the Mayor was involved with. We have this document that goes to the future of all our stadia, and yet after 6, 2, 3 years, the people sitting around here have had no opportunity, no update, no briefing, yet we're making a decision today that, as we know from the article, pushes the first domino over. Is that a satisfactory way, do you think, to conduct council business?
I don't agree with the characterisation of the process.
Councillor Leone, please.
Kia ora, just two very quick questions. The first one, I just had a very brief chat to the chair of the local board, and I wanted to ask, I know that it's been raised the concern of the 11 million going to the local board. Am I able to actually ask the chair of the local board to come up and just provide that background in terms of that decision being made for Tātaki to run that project?
Thank you, Councillor. We'll be brief. There's been a lot of talk that there's been no benefit to the local board and actually the money should have come directly to us. We took advice from council officers in regards to getting that funding, and we were told the lower risk to us as a local board was to ensure that TAU managed the project. If the project goes $100 over, that is their responsibility. It's not ours. We do not have any dollars in our budgets to be able to do anything, and that would mean we would be coming back to you asking for more money. So the advice we took from council officers was to do it in the way that has been proposed as the lower risk to the local board as well as to the governing body.
Thank you. And my second question was just around accountability going forward. I know one of the other concerns raised is the management of the consolidation. So is there an opportunity, and this isn't specifically for the local board, it could be for staff and local board together, is there an opportunity for councillors actually to come out on a regular basis to see the works progressing and the progress of that project?
Yes, and I think just refer to my earlier comment that if this proceeds today, there will be there is a high, a very strong expectation that the council will need to hold an expectation that we follow through and deliver on this, and that will require regular updates to ensure that we're on track.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Filipaina, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I will make your day by very, very, very quick. Just to our staff, firstly, malo lava lauawhionga tui whaasasina, Sir Brian Williams. I just wanted to acknowledge your presence here, sir. So just wanted to get that out of the way. So yeah, whawhtai lava. Look, I want to go firstly to the Local Government Act 2002. Now, Max, I know you've said a few things during this and in relation to any of the apartheid that you've faced, and as well as the team. Can I confirm that under Section 76, which implies that 77, 78, 80, 81 and 82 around our decision, can you confirm that we have fulfilled the obligations of Section 76 under the Local Government Act 2002? In particular, the question is around Section 78, which is community views in relation to decisions. Can you confirm? I know that number one, I'm not going to read the whole lot out for number one, but you mentioned number three in particular, which was a local authorities are not required by this section alone to undertake any consultation process or procedure. From your perspective, have we fulfilled the Local Government Act 2002?
Yes, from our perspective, the process has been sufficient to fulfil that obligation, just with the caveat that it's a matter for you and not for me to decide whether you fulfilled those obligations. But our advice is that enough has happened.
That was going to be my
for
next
you to
part,
make that decision.
but you've answered that, so thank you. Can I also confirm that this issue around the Speedway has been going for the last 6 years?
Well, I think it actually goes back some time before then, but yes, since yes, the answer to your question is yes.
But what I'm saying is that substantively 6 years. That's when the decision-making process happened. I can go back to 2003.
Yes.
In regards to Speedway, but from a decision-making process, 2018 is when we ended up having it brought to finance and performance and workshops. Can I confirm that?
Yes.
Can I also confirm, and Councillor Watson, he mentioned the meeting, the finance and performance meeting that was held in November. Can I confirm it was the 20th of November? I obviously was present along with some of the other councillors around this table. Can I confirm that the decision to end up deferring that particular item was 11 votes to 10?
I assume that's correct, Councillor.
Yeah, it is. So it was very, very close in regards to that particular decision. Can I also confirm that when you spoke about the expression of interest, or I think the term you used, that we had two, then we put out that expression again, received one. Can you now tell me how did we end up with the current promoter, as in Mr. Bruce Robertson?
So Palmerston North Speedway were the successful party in the last RFP process.
Yeah, and we then approached Mr. Robertson, is that correct, Mr. Bruce Robertson, that we ended up approaching him to consider possibly looking at putting an expression of interest? How did that happen where we now have Mr. Bruce Robertson?
So Bruce Robertson is the owner of Palmerston North Speedway, and Palmerston North Speedway participated in that 2018 RFP process and was assessed at the time to be the successful proponent and has been running Speedway at Western Springs since the following 2019 season.
Okay. Just two more, Chair. Speedway New Zealand. Can you tell me if they support Speedway Auckland, Western Springs financially?
The information we received is that they do not financially support the operation of the Speedway activities in Auckland.
Can you also tell me, and this is the last question, Chair, Mr. Mayor, is there have been issues reported in June of 2018, November of 2018. Both those particular articles had Mr. Bill Buckley saying, yes, it's time to move, and time to move to Collindale Park. And I know this is a different beast in regards to Waikaraka Park. But can you tell me that there has been extensive reporting from our staff that came through to our committee meetings, not only in June 2018, but November 2018, and subsequently there was our Auckland report in the 15th of March 2019. So Council has had sufficient information to base any decision on what happens at Speedway. Is that correct? Am I with the assumptions I've just given you?
Yes, I think that's a fair assessment, Councillor.
I think my last one, sorry, Chair, I think that the last one for me is that, can you confirm that Collindale Park, and I, just to let you know, I've spoken to staff at Collindale Park, that Collindale Park is off the board now. The only option that is for Speedway is Waikaraka Park. Can I confirm?
Yes, that's our position. And Collindale was looked at the location analysis and was discounted. Yep.
Yeah, okay, I reserve my right, Chair, and look, I just want to acknowledge the work that has been done. I'm not a clairvoyant, but I'm going to say one thing, if that's okay, Chair, and then the issue around Ponsonby is not going to go away. About Ponsonby Rugby Club, I can tell you now, that is not going to go away. That'll be something that I'm looking forward to having an input. But that issue is not going to go away. So my question is, will you be prepared for what is coming in regards to Ponsonby Rugby Club? That's my question.
Yes, and I think we were clear in the memo circulated today that Council's officer's intention is that staff will engage fulsomely with Ponsonby Rugby on any plans that will affect them, and that we'll follow through with that intention.
Kia ora, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, good questions, thank you, and I agree with you. Councillor Williamson, please.